Welcome to this video assignment on the Civil Rights Movement. This is voting in the Civil Rights Movement. Freedom Summer, also known as the Mississippi Summer Project, was an attempt to register as many African American voters as possible in Mississippi in 1964. The campaign was organized by the Council of Federated Organizations, which was a coalition of the Mississippi branches of the NAACP, the SCLC, CORE, and SNCC. Over 1,000 out-of-state volunteers participated in Freedom Summer, alongside thousands of black Mississippians. Most of the out-of-state volunteers were young and from the North. 90% of them were white, and many were Jewish. On June 21, 1964, 3 civil rights workers were arrested. James Chaney, a black CORE activist from Mississippi, CORE organizer Michael Schwerner, and summer volunteer Andrew Goodman. They were detained in Neshoba County seat, Philadelphia, Mississippi, by Deputy Sheriff Cecil Price, who was also a member of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Chaney, Schwerner, and Goodman were held in jail after nightfall, and then released into a waiting ambush of Klansmen. Schwerner and Goodman were killed at point-blank range. Chaney was chased, beaten mercilessly, and shot 3 times. The incident drew national attention, and the FBI moved in to investigate. The 3 bodies were found at the bottom of an earthen dam. In addition to Chaney, Schwerner, and Goodman, 4 more volunteers lost their lives working for Freedom Summer. 4 people were also critically wounded, and 80 workers were beaten. 1,062 people were arrested. 37 churches were bombed or burned, as well as 30 black homes or businesses. The effort to register people to vote had gotten deadly. To spotlight this struggle to register black voters, the SCLC sponsored a 60-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in March 1965. It was styled after Gandhi's marches in India. It created a huge backlash among Southerners, and as a result, there were 3 marches along U.S. Highway 80. The SCLC chose Selma because they knew Selma had a hot-headed, loose-cannon sheriff, Jim Clark, and that he would help generate outrageous press over the march. Armed with pistols, clubs, and cattle prods, he menaced black student protesters. He used the electric cattle prod on them while marching them to holding areas. Clark formed an anti-civil rights force comprised of highway patrolmen and the KKK to drive the activists out of his jurisdiction, and was present for the protest march that set in motion the Selma to Montgomery marches of February 18th. When state troopers started to club the mother and grandfather of Jimmy Lee Jackson, a 26-year-old church deacon, Jackson rose to their defense and was shot in the stomach by State Trooper Corporal James Bonard Fowler. Jackson later died. The first march was stopped at the Edmund Pettus Bridge outside of Selma. After the second march on March 7th was stopped at the bridge, violence erupted as Sheriff Clark used 200 troopers, many of them on horseback, tear gas, billy clubs, bullwhips, and rubber tubes wrapped in barbed wire to chase down fleeing protesters and beating them after they were caught. 17 protesters were hospitalized. This became known as Bloody Sunday. Before Americans saw the violence of Bloody Sunday on their nightly news, the ABC network treated them to a showing of Judgment at Nuremberg, which depicted the Holocaust. The third march, that was started on March 21st and concluded on March 25th, reached the Alabama state capitol after federal judge Frank Menees Johnson prevented the state from blocking the marchers. To protect Dr. King, many black men who shared Dr. King's build wore a blue suit like Dr. King to confuse would-be assassins. On the steps of the state capitol, Dr. King presented his "How long, not long" speech. Some excerpts. Once more, the method of nonviolent resistance was unsheathed from its scabbard, and once again an entire community was mobilized to confront the adversary. And again, the brutality of a dying order shrieks across the land. Yet Selma, Alabama, became a shining moment in the conscience of man. If the worst in American life lured in its dark street, The best of American instincts arose passionately from across the nation to overcome it. The battle is in our hands, and we can answer with creative nonviolence the call to higher ground to which the new directions of our struggle summon us. The road ahead is not altogether a smooth one. There are no broad highways that lead us easily and inevitably to quick solutions, but we must keep going. How long? Not long, because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. The significance of the Selma to Montgomery marches is that it helped bring about the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Among those who marched in Selma were historian C. Vann Woodward and science fiction author Harlan Ellison. You might recognize him from Star Trek. After the third march, LBJ spoke before Congress, urging the passage of a Voting Rights Act, ending with the phrase, "We shall overcome." According to SCLC activist C.T. Vivian, LBJ's speech was an affirmation of the movement. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed by Congress on August 6th. It gave the federal government the power to act to protect voting rights in the states as it encouraged registration of new voters. Finally, the federal government had enforcement for the 15th Amendment that disallowed voting discrimination on the basis of race. It took 95 years. The Voting Rights Act also enforced the 24th Amendment, which outlawed poll taxes and other means of disfranchisement. The 24th Amendment was ratified on January 1964. On July 26, 2006, President George W. Bush extended the Voting Rights Act for 25 years. On June 25, 2013, the Supreme Court struck down Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act that designated which parts of the United States had to get changes to their voting laws approved by the federal government. This is how Texas's voter ID law became constitutional overnight. In 1971, the nation ratified the 26th Amendment, which lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. And although the civil rights movement had achieved success by 1965, they had gained a Civil Rights Act, and they had gained a Voting Rights Act. The movement itself begins to fragment as the focus of the movement leaves the South. Thank you for watching this video assignment on voting in the civil rights movement, and may the force be with you on your next exam.